Speaking about COVID-19, I think I would kick myself if I didn't ask you, because even yesterday on my social media, I have not spoken about COVID-19 particularly because I've got no business. But the amount of times I'm seeing people talk about COVID was a scam.
Oh, yeah.
It's a way to control us.
Yeah.
It was an experiment. I grew up similar to you in that the biggest conspiracy theory I was fascinated by was JFK. And now we seem to have turned everything into a conspiracy theory. You were on the front line, so from your perspective, COVID-19 was definitely real.
Oh, yeah. God, it's far, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was, and it wasn't just real, it was the worst thing we've ever seen by miles. You know, I mean, it was awful. The numbers, but just the how bad a disease it was. And I think that's what I find difficult about all the conspiracies. You know, it was just flu. People were dying older than the average. You know, it wasn't. I mean, it shortened people's lives by on average 10 years. The people who died. So, you know, yes, a lot of people died in their 80s, but a lot of people younger died, and it took 10 years life expectancy off those people. So you can't ignore that. And then the vaccines, I mean, I know, I find the vaccine harmed word really difficult. You know, vaccines have side effects, antibiotics have side effects, everything has side effects. And of course, if you know, I've seen people with life-threatening vaccine side effects in our hospital, but no one's making up the figures about this. You know, and this idea that mRNA vaccines are an experiment. You know, people have been working on mRNA for years and years. Yes, it's a new vaccine, but it's not a, you know, something someone's just knocked together in the back shed. So I find it difficult. I mean, I get that we should be, you know, I'm quite skeptical about the government, but I don't. I think this is targeted at the wrong people. And I get people are terrified of big pharma and all this kind of stuff, but I think, you know, vaccines are vital, and the vaccine story is hugely important in the COVID story, and that's my view. I mean, and I think the arguments like lockdowns will go on and on, but I find it difficult when people say, well, now it's clear, you know, lockdown was a disaster and ruined. I mean, I know that it had side effects, and lots of people had mental health problems, but I think to just write it off as a stupid idea is, you know, when those numbers were coming through the door, were going like this. I'm doing an up sign. You know, we were desperate for people to stop interacting because we didn't have anywhere to put anyone.
It might have seemed extreme, but you're saying that when I mean, I'm so risk averse that if you tell me to stay at home, I'm staying at home. And if I've got an hour out of the house, I'm going to be 59 minutes and 59 seconds. I'm such a
no, me too. I like that. Me too.
So, but what you're saying is that when lockdowns were lifted, or when there were people were coming in, it was like because they have not been obeying the lockdown rules, or because they've been interacting. So you could actually see more than anyone that as awful as a lockdown is, and we know that there are going to be mental health impacts and huge impacts on people, but in terms of lowering the number of people coming into hospitals, it was effective.
Yeah, I mean that was our experience. I mean, we saw, and I know that people, you know, I'm new to social media, but I see all the stuff, and they say, oh, it started slowing down before the lockdown rules. But, you know, our experience was that the lockdown slowed it down. And, you know, if it had gone on going up, it would have been much worse.
Did you review, or were you in some way, did you have something to do with Nightingale Hospital?
I did go to the Nightingale, yeah. And
that
was
didn't
another
actually
thing.
Get used in the way that
it got used a little bit. I think 50 patients went there, but they were when I went there, they were building 4,000 beds, and it was terrifying. And that was a great argument for lockdown.
Would you mind explaining what the Nightingale Hospital was?
Yes, so the Nightingale was an idea put in place as the first pandemic started of of COVID, which was to be an overflow hospital of intensive care because the numbers projected to far outstrip the number of beds we had. So they planned to build 4,000 ICU beds in the Excel Centre and then in other places around the country, and use them as sort of field intensive cares, if you like.
Wow.
Because that was another classic thing with the pandemic. So the disease, we thought it would just be a lung disease, and you just put people on ventilators and wait for it to get better and take them off. But it wasn't. It was a multi-system disease, and it was you couldn't just put them on a basic ventilator. They had to be on high tech ventilators and being turned onto their front and all this sort of stuff, which we didn't know when it hit, but found out pretty quickly. And that's why everyone backed off the Nightingale, because you needed people to be, as many people as possible, to be in prop hospitals. But of course, if the numbers had carried on going up, there wouldn't have been anywhere in hospitals. There wouldn't have been enough ventilators. There wouldn't have been enough oxygen. It would have been horrendous. I think Nightingale Hospital was when it got a bit sort of doomsday. It was like, God, this is like something out of a film. Yeah. And
the only time we've ever seen anything like COVID is in films. Before COVID happened, it was so you actually being there in the hospital as all these cases are coming in. I don't know how that must have been to process, because did you think, oh, this is it, this is it, this is just the end?
Well, so there was different funny stage. I mean, not funny. There were different stages. So the when we knew it was coming, when it was in Italy, and we had that, we had about a week or two, and we were trying to prepare. And that was in some ways more frightening, because you thought, I don't know what's coming, and am I going to get it? Am I going to all this sort of stuff? And then I remember when going in the first time to a bay full of it and seeing people getting on with looking after patients, that was a kind of a relief. You thought, oh no, it's still being a doctor, and it's But then I had another one where a young person died of it, like in their 20s, and then so it was a kind of roller coaster. It's another funny thing is that when it started, I'd in my mind thought it was going to be a 3-month thing and it'd be done, and so that's how I was dealing with it.
Because you thought there'd be a vaccine or a cure?
Well, no, because I just didn't accept that there would be a second spike.
Right.
I just sort of thought, I had my birthday in the distance in July. I thought by then we'll be back to normal. Of course it was, but in a way it was quite good because it made it manageable at the time. But I don't know, we had something to do. We had a job. We, in a way, I don't really know what being in lockdown is. I was going to work every day, so I didn't have that thing of, I wouldn't not be good sitting at home teaching the children every day. It would have been awful.